Hello, my name's Aqua, and this is my guide to Darktide. I'm aiming for this to be somewhere in between a beginner's guide and a pro gamer guide. I don't claim to be anything but a well-traveled player, and frankly, I might oversaturate this with too much information for all but the most nerdy beginners. I'm going to go relatively in-depth with each concept, and I hope to enlighten some players on mechanics that they may not have known about before. If you've played a bit and don't quite understand why something might have happened during a run, then try looking up in one of these guides for the thing that happened, and hopefully you will gain a better understanding. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll be able to keep my attention span in check long enough to make this a proper series. If you enjoy it, feel free to do all of the YouTube things like pressing buttons that aren't the dislike or report buttons. Thanks again. Dodging is one of the most important defensive options you have in Darktide, if not the most important. Learning to dodge effectively can make or break your survivability. In particular, dodging completely negates all damage from most attacks, with only a few exceptions. Nearly every threat can be out-dodged depending on your weapon choices. And, to note, your weapon choices do matter when it comes to this. Every weapon, and in some cases, which non-weapon slot you have selected, dictates your survivability while using that weapon or slot. You aren't able to dodge infinitely, at least not anymore, RIP Force Swords. And every slot of your loadout will have different limitations there. Every slot has what is referred to as an effective dodge limit. Put simply, when you are wielding a weapon or have a non-weapon slot active, you have a set number of dodges you can pull off in quick succession before you must wait a brief moment for them to regenerate. Usually, the minimum number of dodges that you have are 2. I think it's possible to get a 1-dodge weapon with a particularly bad roll, but that's pretty rare. The maximum is often 5, although there are a couple of weapons that manage to get 6. As well as having a limit on the number of dodges, every weapon also has a differing dodge distance. While it's not always the case, most of the time, melee weapons will have a dodge distance bonus while wielding them, and ranged weapons will more often than not have a dodge distance penalty instead. So, when you're aiming to be defensive and avoid oncoming attacks, you'll usually want to be holding your melee weapon to do so. Not to say that dodging while holding your ranged weapon is completely ineffective, but you'll definitely feel less mobile. The most important thing to learn via muscle memory with regard to dodging, and with sprinting and sliding, which are generally less reliable, is sound and visual cues. I'll get more into specific cues with the specialist and elite enemies, but when dealing with the simple melee and ranged attacks, these are very simple tells that can help you understand when you're in danger. For melee enemies, you can obviously see when they're taking a swing at you. Generally, the animations communicate when a strike would hit you effectively, so you can reliably read an enemy's animations for this purpose. But, what if you're about to be struck from behind? Fat Shark thought of this. If you're about to be struck from behind, there's a particular audio cue you'll hear. When you hear this sound, you should mentally train yourself to immediately dodge, and depending on how good your headphones or speakers are, you should learn the direction to dodge. Generally, dodging perpendicular, i.e. to the side relative to the thing attacking you, is more effective than simply dodging backwards, particularly if you're holding a ranged weapon and suffering from the slightly lower dodge distance. Some enemies have much longer reaches than you can effectively dodge away from, so if you're hearing something from the side, often a backstep is your best option. For ranged attacks, the tells are similar, if different. You obviously won't get much of an animation out of an enemy pulling his trigger, so Fat Shark has a great alternative that's not all that foreign to some players that have played games with snipers in it. When you're looking at a shooter, there's a brief flash from their gun that will display, akin to the glint of a sniper scope, right before they pull the trigger for a volley of fire. Now, we'll get into individual specialist difference here later, but most of the basic shooters follow this tell, and even the specialists start with this tell, even if the follow-up and mechanics may differ a bit. Also similarly to melee, there's a separate audio cue that plays when a shooter is targeting you out of your field of view. When you hear this, it's generally more important than the melee cue to try and dodge to the side relative to the shot. I've seen the shots get dodged and disjointed from a backwards dodge, but it's inconsistent since gunshots will generally shoot past the intended target area, and therefore, you're pretty likely to still get hit if you've just dodged in a line. A note with range dodging is that depending on the enemy's spread, sometimes you'll still get hit by a single bullet from the volley they fire. Not entirely sure if this is based on how perfectly you time your dodge, or if it's just a product of the enemy weapon's spread, or RNG, and your own dodge distance. Either way, just expect that in general, it's much more effective to find cover rather than try to out-dodge a firing squad of shooters. So, from dodging, we have the lesser dodging. Sprinting and sliding can also disjoint ranged fire and melee attacks, though these can be a bit less reliable. There's a lot here to say about these mechanics, and I'll probably not be going into that, only giving the general idea that they're overall less reliable at avoiding fire for various reasons. Sprinting requires stamina to be effective, and as with your dodge count, your weapons affect this. I'll go into more specifics as I describe the resources involved in staying alive in Darktide, but for now, all you need to know is that while you have stamina, you will sprint faster, avoid melee attacks if you were sprinting out of the range of them by the time they would land, and avoid ranged attacks if you were sprinting at an angle that would actually avoid the bullet. Specify this because if you're sprinting directly towards or directly away from a shooter, the same rules apply with dodging. You're either moving toward the bullets in line or away from the bullets in line, and you're still gonna get hit by them. As for sliding, it's kind of a mixed bag. If you've never played a game where sliding is a thing, you slide by crouching while sprinting. There's also a dedicated bind you can set in your keybind options for sliding, though I personally have never used it. You can slide instantly by holding the sprint key and then immediately hitting your crouch key. You can chain this indefinitely, just like sprinting, but it follows the same rules as sprinting with regard to stamina. There's also both a wind up and a wind down to the movement to consider that interrupts a constant dodge, causing you to be vulnerable at those brief times. Despite this, it can be more effective for simply moving around faster if you have a weapon that gives you a movement speed buff to your sprinting, as your sliding speed will generally happen at your sprinting speed, and because you're not technically sprinting as you slide, you will not consume stamina during the slide itself, though your stamina will also not regenerate until you've stopped sliding and have not started sprinting again, which is a tiny window, but it does make up for itself. This can maximize your stamina for the purposes of movement, but as said before, has caveats where you're still not in a dodging state that can cause poorly timed slides to just fail to avoid your damage outright. You can, however, use this pretty effectively to outrun slower melee enemies, just don't rely on it too heavily. As said before, some attacks have more length than width, so they may strike you even if you outrun the attacker by a fair distance. A few tiny things to add before we're completely done with movement. Jumping does not help you with avoiding anything at all. It consumes a set amount of stamina. It will not confer to you the same dodging status that sprinting and sliding does to disjoint attacks, though you only want to jump if you're trying to mantle over onto something for, movement. To note, if you're jumping a small gap, you do have a bit of leeway, as if you're still holding onto the jump button, you will mantle onto a ledge if you collide with it midair. Other than pure traversal, you really don't want to jump much at all. Toughness. The blue bar on your HUD acts as a combination of a shield and armor as you'd expect in other games. More on these differences in a moment, but the important things to note are: Toughness will regenerate on its own after not taking damage for a few moments if you're in Coherency, i.e. when you are near other teammates. You gain a small amount of Toughness back for any melee kill, and class-specific talents and weapon blessings can reduce the amount of damage you take in Toughness, how much Toughness you replenish via Coherency, how much Toughness you replenish via kills, and also add other ways entirely to regain your Toughness. Toughness is not often healed by sources outside of yourself, aside from Coherency, but those sources do exist, require Coherency, and in the cases of abilities, can overcharge your Toughness to beyond its maximum. If this happens, the blue bar will become gold, and a plus number will show you how many points you are over your maximum. Usually this will not exceed either 50 or 100 depending on the source. Health is, as in many games, the amount of damage you can take before being downed. you'll notice that there are little pips that separate your health into chunks, which are referred to in-game as wounds. Without any talents or perks enhancing your numbers, all 3 human classes, Veteran, Zealot, and Psyker, have 4 wounds at Sedition, 3 wounds at Uprising and Malice, and 2 wounds at Heresy and Damnation. Ogryn start with 1 more than humans, with 5 wounds at Sedition, 4 wounds at Uprising and Malice, and 3 wounds at Heresy and Damnation. On screen are also the health and toughness values that players of each class start at. I'll do a proper breakdown of each class in their respective basics video. Keep in mind that this does not increase or decrease your actual health, just how many segments your health is split up into. A second mechanic called Corruption can reduce your maximum health, and from the combination of Corruption and Wounds, the game determines how many downs you are given before you're captured and must be rescued by other players. The breakdown is this. Every time your health is reduced to 0, the first segment of your health that is not completely consumed by corruption becomes full of it. If you are corrupted to the point that your last wound segment is the only uncorrupted part of your health bar, the next time you would go down, you simply die. Once this happens, you will spawn somewhere later in the level at a checkpoint. Where the game decides to put you is determined by the AI director, and could be in the same room if your team is at a holdout objective of some kind, could be the next checkpoint available, or in some cases may be a considerable distance away based on how the level's checkpoints are laid out. Your empty, non-corrupted health can be healed by metapacks or Medicae stations. Fully corrupted health segments can only be purged and healed using a Medicae station, and through destroying grimoires, which are optional objective items that corrupt you as long as you're holding them. The value of picking one up to specifically purge corruption should be discussed with your team, though if you do destroy it, it will remove roughly half a segment's worth of corruption, which may manage to give someone another segment to work with. Segments that are not fully corrupted can also have that corruption purged by a Zealot passive aura and by metapacks if a Veteran is taking a specific talent. So, you've got all that health and toughness. What removes it? Well, simple answer is damage, but as ever, it's a little more complicated than that. Melee damage and range damage work differently when interacting with your health and toughness bars. Range damage is always fully blocked by toughness if you have any, behaving more or less like a halo shield, breaking and bleeding into health only when it's fully depleted. Melee damage, however, follows more of an armor system, where at 100% toughness, your toughness bar will fully tank a melee hit, but at anything less than 100%, your health will take damage reduced by the percentage of your toughness that you're missing. This is why, by default, only melee kills replenish your toughness actively. In addition to these mechanics, there are a few other quirks to damage taken. Some attacks, such as a Trapper's Net, will deal corruption to your bar instead of flat damage, and they will ignore your toughness entirely. Melee damage from Poxwalkers and explosions from Pox Bursters will deal corruption damage, but count as melee, so they will be mitigated by your toughness. Fire of any kind from flamers, Tox Flamers, fire grenades from bombers, and fire from incendiary barrel explosions will instantly break your toughness and begin chewing at your health at a painful rate. Tox Flamers in particular will also deal corruption damage after breaking your toughness. Basically, fire is bad, unless it's from a Zealot's Flamer or Immolation Grenade, or the white warp fire that Psykers can wield. Stamina. Stamina is used for 4 things: sprinting, jumping, blocking, and pushing. Each of your weapons will have a bonus to stamina, and you can stack further bonuses using perks found on both weapons and curios. Each weapon will use the stamina value based on your base stamina plus any bonuses to that specific weapon. And any other slots, such as your blitz or deployables, will usually inherit whichever weapon's stamina is greater. I won't go too in-depth with this since most of the information is covered under the concepts that you're consuming stamina to accomplish, but I will note that your stamina is tracked as a percentage, and will therefore both be consumed more slowly by a slot with a larger numerical pool, and replenished more quickly by a slot with a smaller numerical pool. Just a quirk to keep in mind while sprinting, sliding, and waiting to replenish. It's a bit less relevant when you're in the thick of things, but it's definitely worth remembering. I also won't go too deeply into dodge count, but it's something that's not typically shown to you in the mission. I have a mod that I will recommend when I make a mod list video that will show you your effective dodge count. Dodge count and distance are shown on the stats for melee weapons in multiple places, but only show up in the summary section for ranged weapons. You can always assume any non-weapon slots maintain a dodge count of 4 and a default dodge distance of 1. Every time you dodge past your limit, the dodge becomes slightly slower, and its distance is reduced by about 5.5%, up to a maximum reduction of 36% after 7 bad dodges. You recover your full effective dodge count 0.8 of a second after your last dodge input. Ammo, obviously, is for your gun. Since you only have one ranged weapons, your entire ammo count can be considered a percentage of the maximum. Again, Darktide itself doesn't communicate your maximum to you in mission, although it does tell you how much ammo other people have. You generally have to keep track of it yourself, but for display purposes I'm still using the same mod that I showed you for dodges. You can replenish your ammo in a couple of ways. Ammo pickups, both small and large. How much is replenished differs from weapon to weapon, but a small 10 will usually restore between 10 to 20% of your total ammo capacity, and large pickups will be between 40 and 50%. Ammo crates will give you full ammunition instantly, but can only be used 4 times total, regardless of how much ammo you have replenished with it. Try not to waste it on like 5 bullets. Outside of this, one of the veteran's auras can grant all teammates in Coherency a percentage of ammo back every time anyone on the team kills an enemy. When you're viewing other people's ammo, it shows up as a little ammo icon. If someone is yellow, they're missing a bit of ammo. If it's orange, they're missing a lot of ammo, and if it's red, they are out of ammo. Keep that in mind when you're trying to ration out ammo pickups. Your Blitz ability is often what is referred to as your grenade, though it's referred to as Blitz because it can differ in a few instances, most notably with the Psyker. Most Blitzes have counts of ammunition separate from your actual ammo, which varies based on what the Blitz is. In any case where the Blitz is an actual grenade, however, you can replenish them either via grenade boxes or through another talent from Veteran that has a chance to grant everyone a grenade from the elite kill. Or the same talent from above that restores corruption from metapacks also gives you grenades when you take ammo from an ammo pack. Now the exceptions to these ammo pickups are Zealot's throwing knives, which are replenished whenever they pick up ammunition, which means if you're using these, be careful not to waste ammunition by picking up one while you're low on knives, but full on ammo. Ogren's rocks, which replenish automatically over time, and any of the Psyker Blitzes, which are either infinite with a caveat, or replenish automatically over time. Coherency is a catch-all term for being in the range of another player's aura. The default range for a player's aura is about 10 meters. Your coherency status is indicated in 2 places. One icon on your buff bar will tell you how many players you're in coherency with, counting yourself, which means if this buff is only showing 1, you are alone. In addition, there are coherency icons next to each of your teammates, which tell you whose auras you're receiving the buffs from. The more players you're in coherency with, the faster toughness regeneration will be for everyone. Your own personal coherency range can be increased using any talent on your class's skill tree that mentions increasing the range of your aura. There's only about 1 of these per class, so keep in mind that this change is reciprocated, meaning that it simply increases the distance you can be away from any single teammate while still maintaining coherency. Another thing to note with coherency is that it is daisy-chained. By that, I mean that you do not have to stay in the range of every single teammate huddled together. Instead, each player extends the range of the coherency by their own personal bubble, as shown here. You don't have to worry about a far player, as if everyone is scattered out but still in each individual pair's coherency, you can maintain it with a player as far as 30 meters away, or further if anyone is taking the aura range increase. These are general mechanics that are shared across most classes and weapon types. In the next video, I'll be going over the mechanics that are specific to weapon slots, both melee and ranged. I hope this starting primer was useful. If you got any questions, feel free to plant them in the comments. I can't guarantee I'll be able to respond to every single one, but I will at least try to keep up. Thanks again, and good luck, rejects.